You think you're making your own choices, don't you? You scroll, swipe, double tap, and you call it freedom. But pause for just a second. Have you noticed how lust is sold to you in disguise? It's not just in the obvious places. Those ads you pretend not to notice, the hot thumbnails, the endless stream of suggested content. It's in your feed, your music, your movies, your fashion, your fitness ambitions. You're being taught how to want before you even know what you need. And the worst part, you think it's all your idea. They don't need chains when they've got your desires. Lust, sexualized, exaggerated, carefully packaged, is the most profitable carrot ever dangled in front of a population. It's not just about sex, it's about control. When you're trained to chase the high of attraction, you're easier to herd. You become predictable. You'll buy the clothes, the gym membership, the cologne, the supplements. You'll click the link, subscribe to the channel, follow the influencer. You'll do it thinking you're leveling up, but what you're really doing is following the scent of bait. This isn't paranoia, it's pattern recognition. You see a billboard, a half-naked model. She's not selling lingerie, she's selling fast food. Think about that. They've linked primal desire to consumption so seamlessly you don't question it. Why does a burger need cleavage? Because a full stomach isn't enough anymore. They want your hunger to spill over into everything. You're not just hungry for food. You're hungry for validation, attention, closeness, power. And they're more than happy to promise it all for a price. But here's the trick: it never satisfies. That's the point. You're not supposed to be fulfilled. You're supposed to stay wanting. That's how the machine keeps turning. You don't chase connection or meaning. You chase the next dopamine hit. You stare at filtered, photoshopped bodies and feel less than. So you buy more. You perform more. You pretend more. And all the while, you're being drained. Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. You're not a free agent in this game. You're a customer, a product, and a pawn. And the whole thing is wrapped in a bow of pleasure. So you thank them for the cage. You unlock your phone, and you lock yourself in. Remember when you thought you needed to look a certain way to be loved? That wasn't you talking. That was a whisper planted in your mind a long time ago. Lust, when weaponized, doesn't just control your actions. It rewrites your identity. It tells you what's attractive, what's desirable, what makes you enough. And when you fall short, and you always will, because the standard keeps shifting, they've got a solution to sell you, again and again and again. Look at how early it starts. Teenagers, even kids, are being fed hyper-sexualized images before their brains can process what they're seeing. And it's not just what they see. It's how they're taught to see themselves. Boys grow up thinking dominance equals desirability. Girls are trained to believe that their value lies in how many people want them. It's not just marketing, it's programming. And by the time you're old enough to question it, the damage is done. What does it cost us? Intimacy. Real, soul-level connection. Because when lust becomes the compass, it doesn't point to love, it points to performance. You learn to pose, not to open up. You learn to seduce, not to care. You mistake being wanted for being worthy. And when the spotlight moves, you're left scrambling for the next trick, the next angle, the next validation hit. You become a curated version of yourself, attractive, filtered, empty. You see it in dating apps, swipe culture. Endless options, no depth. Lust is entertainment, not connection. And when you're trained to consume people like content, don't be surprised when relationships feel disposable. That's the control mechanism. They've turned your heart into a market. Your attention is currency. Your loneliness is opportunity. And they've monetized both. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you saw someone celebrated for their loyalty, their depth, their integrity? Those virtues don't sell quick. But abs, lingerie. Hey, thirst trap, selfie. That gets likes. That gets shares. That's the new capital. And day by day, you're taught to value the shallow over the sacred. The system doesn't just want you distracted. It wants you disoriented. It wants you confusing lust with love, chemistry with compatibility, attention with affection. Because when you're confused, you're controllable. And when you're controllable, you're profitable. You're probably thinking, so what? Everyone's doing it. And that's exactly the point. When a lie becomes universal, it starts to feel like truth. But just because something's common doesn't make it right. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen the Egyptians used. Yeah, everyone did it. Didn't make it smart. Same thing here. We've normalized lust as currency, and now we're bankrupt in all the ways that matter. Let's talk about how this affects your drive, your actual purpose. Lust, when hijacked, becomes a distraction engine. It takes your natural creative energy and reroutes it into fantasy. You were built to build, to lead, to love, to serve. But when your focus is hijacked by constant stimulation, screens, bodies, innuendo, you lose your edge, you lose your fire. You trade vision for visual. You become passive, reactive, soft. And don't think this is just theory. You can see it in productivity stats, in rising anxiety, in the collapse of attention spans. People don't finish books now. They finish reels. They don't pursue excellence. They pursue likes. When lust is the driver, you stop being the author of your story and start being a spectator of someone else's highlight reel. You stop creating and start consuming. And consumption never satisfies, it only numbs. That's the control mechanism in its most insidious form. You're kept just entertained enough not to rebel, just aroused enough not to reflect, just busy enough not to build. You don't ask why you're unfulfilled, because there's always another distraction. Another body, another fantasy, another hit of false intimacy. And every time you indulge, you dig the groove deeper. The pattern becomes a prison. But here's the wake-up call: your attention is your power. Your focus is your freedom. And every time you let lust steal it, you're giving away the keys to your own future. You're not just losing time, you're losing trajectory. You're losing depth. You're becoming a version of yourself crafted by algorithms, not by vision. They don't need to enslave you when you're willing to shackle yourself. All they have to do is keep lust in front of you, like a carrot on a stick, and you'll chase it. They know you will, unless you choose to see through it. Now, let's talk about the cost you don't see. The emotional erosion. The slow leak of your soul. Because when lust is the lens, it distorts everything. You stop seeing people as people. You see them as potential sources of gratification. You reduce them to parts, to profiles, to performances. And in doing so, you reduce yourself. You lose the ability to connect beyond the surface. You wall yourself off with walls made of want. That's why so many people feel lonelier than ever, even in a hyper-connected world. We've mistaken exposure for intimacy. We think being seen is the same as being known. But when lust dominates, you don't get to be known, you get to be judged, rated, compared. And so you hide, you armor up, you perform, and you wonder why no one ever truly reaches you. The emotional control here is subtle, but it's powerful. When you're constantly bombarded with messages telling you what's hot, you begin to internalize a sense of inadequacy. You start to believe that unless you fit a certain mold, you're invisible. So you chase relevance. You compromise. You chase attention like it's oxygen. And with every compromise, you lose a piece of yourself. That's the game. They don't just control your body, they control your worth. They sell you a standard, and then they sell you the struggle to meet it. It's the perfect loop. And every time you fall short, they've got a product to fill the gap. A makeover, a diet, a filter, an app, a fantasy, but never a solution. Because actual healing doesn't sell well. Actual worth can't be monetized. And if you dare to step out of it, if you say, I want something real, you're labeled boring or worse, repressed. Because in a culture where lust is king, depth is dangerous, love is rebellion, and truth is radioactive, so they drown it out. With noise, with novelty, with endless distraction. Because if you ever actually sit still and look at what this is doing to your soul, you might just wake up. And waking up is the only thing they can't afford. But if you're still listening, it means you're already stirring. You're seeing through the smoke. You're starting to remember that you're not a puppet. You weren't born to chase pixels or sell your soul for likes. You were born for something higher, something deeper. You were born for freedom, and freedom doesn't come from indulgence. It comes from mastery. The world will tell you that giving in to every impulse is liberation, that chasing every lustful urge is self-expression. But look around. Are people more fulfilled, more connected, more joyful for all their freedom? Or are they more anxious, more insecure, more numb? You already know the answer, because deep down you've felt it. That hollow echo after the high fades. That ache that no amount of scrolling, swiping, or hooking up can silence. Here's the truth they don't want you to hear: you're not weak because you feel desire. You're human. But you become weak when you let unchecked desire drive your life. Lust is a fire. Contained, it gives warmth and light. Unleashed, it burns down everything you're trying to build. You were given that fire for a purpose: to fuel love, to forge connection, to power creativity. But when the fire is hijacked by the machine, you become a slave to your own hunger. That's why reclaiming your power starts with awareness. Start noticing. What content are you consuming? What messages are shaping your beliefs? Who profits from your distraction? Every time you choose to disengage from mindless lust, you're reclaiming territory in your mind. Every time you choose depth over dopamine, substance over seduction, you're breaking the cycle. You're not just resisting, you're reprogramming. And don't think you have to be perfect. You won't be. You're going to slip. You're going to get pulled in by the algorithms, the images, the empty promises. But that's okay. Because every time you wake up again, you get stronger. Every time you choose meaning over momentary pleasure, you get clearer. You begin to see how much of your life had been lived asleep. And once you've seen that, you can't go back. This isn't about shame. It's about sovereignty. It's about refusing to be a pawn in a game designed to keep you broken, and begging for more. It's about remembering that your value was never based on how desirable you are to others, but how aligned you are with who you really are. So rise above the noise. Look past the illusion. Refuse to be ruled by artificial appetites. You are more than a consumer, more than a body, more than a click, a view, a sale. You are a soul. And when you stop letting lust lead, you'll find something far more powerful waiting to guide you: purpose. That's when the real freedom begins. You think you've seen it all. Think again. The world is full of secrets, hidden truths, and mind-bending realities waiting to be uncovered. What if everything you believe is just the beginning? Hit subscribe, and let's keep unraveling the mysteries that could change everything.